The Seattle Kraken get a big win at home against the Vancouver Canucks. And maybe this game changed my philosophy about hockey fights. That and more on today's episode of Locked On Kraken.
You are Locked On Kraken, your daily podcast on the Seattle Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We are the Seattle Kraken.
Hey, what do you say, Seattle hockey fans? Welcome to another episode of Locked On Kraken, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where we bring you your favorite team every single day. And did I wake up happy today? The Seattle Kraken getting a impressive win over the Vancouver Canucks. The final score 5-2, Philipp Grubauer in net, and we needed these points. We've got the Minnesota Wild coming up, but we needed these points. We were able to get some movement in the standings. If you watched the post game, then what Nick Olczyk said is absolutely right. We just got to get used to the jockeying in the wild card standings getting very aggressive right now. So while this is great for us, they even talked about us having fewer games played right now than the Calgary Flames, who we talked about on yesterday's episode. We still have to stay the course. But this game felt good. What impressed me the most is that we talk about all the time that the Seattle Kraken don't play well when playing from behind. That being said, we let up that first goal and were really, really impressive after that point. I thought we played the 3 Fs beautifully. And even in the intermission interviews with Piper Shaw, you probably heard some of the guys talking about playing fast. And I think that is exactly what we need from this team. A good performance from Philipp Grubauer. We heard that Eddie Olczyk felt that Philipp is probably going to get the start against the Minnesota Wild. I'm not so sure I'm as convinced. It's nothing against Philipp Grubauer, but I think it goes back to something that we talked about several episodes ago. When we look at the head-to-head matchups, what do we think is going to be in the best interest of the Seattle Kraken, knowing that we have to win games? So we're going to talk about this. I just want to let you know this is a little bit of housekeeping. We're going to be switching this. This shouldn't impact you, but just in case it does, we're going to be switching hosts. Not as in me, your host, but in who hosts our audio side of the podcast. And so I do want to do a podcast, a game day podcast for the Minnesota Wild game. That being said, apologies in advance to our audio listeners because that won't be available to you just because of us switching over hosts. So you'll get a bonus post recap on audio. But if you want to know my thoughts heading into the Minnesota Wild game, where I break down the head-to-head and who I think we will see in net, then we will get into that on the episode that's coming over the weekend. And that being Saturday ahead of the game against the Minnesota Wild. But, I just love this for our guys. We hunkered down. We held fast. We stayed true as a fan base, and it was a great performance. Now, it was not what Alison Lukan in her post-game analysis would say was a quality start for either netminder. And I found that interesting because my eye test, I thought that, Thatcher looked really good for Vancouver and stymied the Seattle Kraken. But some of the analysis, and by the numbers, as Alison Lukan says, I love this. Her first bullet point, the Kraken earned this win the right way. In 5-on-5 play in regulation, the Kraken generated 59.26% of all shot volume and 61.69% of all shot quality. Seattle is now 19-0-4 when leading heading into the final frame of regulation. That's that second period we really took over from Vancouver. They are just one of 5 teams, Florida, Buffalo, LA, and Montreal, to not have a regulation loss when leading after 40 minutes of play. I love that nugget. The top skaters per game score: Jared McCann, Jordan Eberle, Vince Dunn, Justin Schultz, and Matty Beniers. And I thought it was great in the post-game scrum. McCann was asked about Matty Beniers. He talked about continuing to tell Matty to shoot, that he's doing all of the right things, and that sometimes, though, he sacrifices taking his shot. And so he knows, McCann said he knows that Beniers is good, and that when he is scoring and contributing offensively, getting points, that it comes in bunches. So I love that. I love that you have some of the older guys, his line mates at that are really encouraging Matty B. And I think it's just a matter of time. I think he's in a much better situation than what we talked about before. This is going to be a pretty tight episode because, again, we're integrating, and so there's just some things that I want to get out there for this Friday episode. But come to YouTube for Saturday. I'm traveling today, but come to YouTube for a episode. It will go in more depth for some of what I'm talking about. But this was a really good win. It was an important win, and I love what Allison Lucan says. Yes, we won the right way. Coming up on today's episode, I want you to hear a little bit from McCann. You'll also hear from Eberle, and then the road ahead. So we're going to look at the standings and then just talk a little bit about the Wilds. That will mostly be for those of you listening on audio. I'm going to give you a few just nuggets that we should keep up with. And then, of course, on YouTube, I'll have a more in-depth game day analysis coming up on Locked On Kraken. Today's episode of Locked On Kraken is brought to you by our friends at Indeed. We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match. And that's what you can do with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data and a match engine that helps find quality candidates fast. One of the things that we hear that people love about Indeed is that it makes hiring all in one place so easy. And that saves time. Not only do they use their algorithm to find people that will be a good match for you, but it takes a lot of the really difficult work out of finding the perfect candidate. So we want you to know that if it's time for you to hire, you need Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visible at Indeed.com/lockedon. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. You need to hire. You need Indeed. And thanks as always for making Locked On Kraken a part of your daily destination. We here at Locked On Kraken, aka me, sorry, Jared, we'll get to you in a minute. I'm super excited about this win. I think it's a great win, a quality win. We won in the right way. I'm going to give you a few other stats. We're going to hear from Jared McCann in a little bit, and then I'll go into more detail on Saturday's episode. But without further ado, let's hear from Jared McCann, one of the stars of the game, the first star of the game. Here's what he had to say to the media.
We talked a little bit about on the bench. The one thing that we didn't talk about is your line mate, Matty Beniers. Have you seen a shift in him at all in terms of his confidence and his execution lately? Yeah, he's shooting the puck more. I find that he's got an underrated shot, and he's got to use it a little bit more, and I kind of keep telling him that. So he's putting himself in good positions to shoot, and when they come in bunches. So just got to keep going.
Vancouver's a pretty explosive team, and yet it looked like for much of tonight you guys were controlling the tempo either with your transition game or your forward checking. I mean, is this a good example of what you guys are capable of?
Yeah, but at the same time, it's pretty frustrating when we don't play like that because
play against the best team in the NHL and one of the best teams in the NHL. And, we play like that. We feel good. We're dominating, and it's frustrating sometimes when we're not playing like that every game, right? So we just got to focus, maybe watch this film and just kind of reiterate before the game, every single game, what we got to do to play well.
You guys had them hemmed in their own end at one point for like a minute and a half, and they couldn't get off the ice. I mean, did that kind of change the momentum a bit towards the end of that period?
Yeah, I mean, they're a very skilled team. Obviously, they got some pretty amazing players over there who can put the puck in the back of the net. So the less time they get with the puck, the better for us. So, we just maybe we got to play more like that.
We got to play more like that. There were so many great things in this game. The attitude is right, but just like Jared said, there's still work to be done. I'm going to talk about a little bit of that work and also talk a little bit about the fights. I'm not into hockey fights, but I'm going to let you know why I liked the aggression in this game and that maybe the Seattle Kraken are finally starting to put the league on notice. That's coming up. Today's episode of Locked On Kraken brought to you by our friends at Ibata. Grocery bills are so expensive these days, but now they don't have to be. Start getting cash back on your grocery shopping with the free Ibata app and get cash back every time you shop. Spring break is around the corner, which means you're going shopping, but don't shop for your big trip and get nothing in return. Make sure you're getting cash back every time you shop with Ibata. Right now, Ibata is offering our listeners $5 just for trying Ibata by using the code LOCKEDONNHL when you register. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibata app to start earning cash back and use code LOCKEDONNHL. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL. Thanks as always for making Locked On Kraken a part of your daily destination. This is going to be a lean show, mostly because we got to get some things up for audio before that integration that I talked about. I don't like fights, but I also don't like bullies. And if you are a longtime listener, I had a fit. I guess it was last season because Vancouver was running over us. And this is a tired team. Eddie Olczyk was talking about that a lot. And I think they thought they could run over us. And the Seattle Kraken, Brandon Tanev, chef's kiss. Definitely, they found out. They bjorked around. You get what I'm saying. And they found out. Now, another thing, though, is that by having this team be pretty heavy on special teams, the fatigue factor for the Vancouver Canucks was very palpable. Between the two teams, you had 7 power play opportunities, 4 for Vancouver, and then 3 for the Seattle Kraken. Everything from icing. They were pulling Matty Beniers. They tried everything against us, and nevertheless, we persisted. They did win the face-off battle, 51% to 48% there. Block shots, we had 16 to their 12. Takeaways, 7 to their 6. Giveaways were even at 2. But this was a solid performance from the Seattle Kraken and exactly what we needed from these guys. The road ahead, we're taking on the Minnesota Wild. They got a really big win against Vancouver. I've been talking about it all week. And when it comes to the standings, I mentioned this briefly, and again, it was on the broadcast, but the Seattle Kraken now have 59 points, still sitting at 5th overall in the Pacific Division. But when it comes to the wild card, we did have some gains. Now it's a matter of being able to keep those gains. The Seattle Kraken now in the 4th spot, but still tied in points with Calgary. Nashville ahead of us with 62 points. So too have the St. Louis Blues, 62 points, and then LA with 66. But we're in the hunt. If we can continue playing this way, this is going to yield good results and maybe get us to our second ever postseason appearance. I'm going to have so much more for you coming up on the Saturday episode. But you know what we always say, be kind to yourselves, be kind to one another, hold fast, stay true. And oh baby, I can't wait once again to give you a game day episode. Remember, on YouTube only, where we can say loud and proud, let's go Kraken. I'll catch you on the next episode. Peace.